everybody. We're going to get started. Anyway, I'm super thrilled to be here today, and as many of you guys remember me, I have 30 years of startup background and a few other things that I was in. And for those of you who don't know me, I got my career started in the military, and when I was in the military, I did a lot of things with data, maybe a little bit different than learning. My job was to reverse engineer where nuclear silos in Russia were so we could melt them. Little did I know that that skill may need to come back. Anyway, I had a horrible accident, and I was in a coma for 18 months, and they had to rebuild me, and I'm mostly a cyborg now, so it's interesting that I'm now at Amazon because I might be inventing my future self. But So I ended up, I built a startup called Synaptic Mash many years ago. Some of you from McGraw-Hill and other companies may remember that. We partnered, and before anybody was talking about personalization, we were together personalizing learning, automating the dynamic portability or the transformation of learning progressions so that we could figure out best modality of learning, best teaching practices, scheduling, and everything. And it's interesting that we're still talking about some of these same things. And so I'm thrilled to be standing here now to talk about something called the operating system of learning. So a learning operating system, you think about what could that possibly be? And when you think about a learning operating system or an operating system on your computer, what does it do? An operating system on your computer is organizing and making sense of all the data and activities that are happening on your computer. So just to lay the groundwork there. After going back in my history again, and after Synaptic Mash, my company got bought by Promethean, and then Promethean got bought by NetDragon. But at that time, Promethean was doing amazing things, thinking about could we have the Internet of Things in classrooms before people were talking about the Internet of Things. So I keep landing in these really forward-thinking companies and programs, which has been an exciting part of my career. I was their chief science officer, and then my former CEO's in this room, so I'm really proud of the work that we did together there. And then I left there and started a company called Declara. So the reason I bring up these two companies is my first companies were really focused on formal learning. And then Declara was focused on informal learning. How do we get the breadcrumbs of knowledge and information, or the metadata, so that we can anticipate what your learning needs are next in the workplace or out in your real life for lifelong learning? And so when you think about a learning operating system, we need to bring that kind of data together. And I've been excited being here today, this year, because I'm starting to hear the echo chamber of that. There's starting to be a zeitgeist of not just talking about lifelong learning, but people actually trying to stretch themselves, companies and startups, stretching into these corners and precipices of learning where learning companies haven't been, or where school districts have been afraid to go. And now we're starting to find our way forward. So I love this slide because as I talk about my history, and I'm talking about all of your histories. So as learning companies, we have been trying to move from one size fits all to sort of a ubiquitous learning place. But we haven't had the ability to leverage data and to have the interoperability of data. We know that our learners are on all these different platforms, but how do we pull it all together? And what's exciting is that we understand that there's all this metadata out there. So the future is really, how do we understand that metadata? Metadata is where personalization will happen. Metadata is where transformation is going to happen. So you're asking, what is metadata? Metadata is the data about data. So that's confusing. So who cares about the data about data? Well, the data about data is important because it gives you information in the content. So who's used this content? Was this content efficacious? Where was this effective? How was it effective? So there's a lot of data that you can put against content, and we're not doing it. And what that's leading to is a lot of disconnected content. So all of us have been inventing, I've been guilty of it, a lot of incredible learning products, but these learning products are sitting siloed out there. So as learning product developers, as ed tech startups, as companies, we're building data mess. We're building the metadata of metadata of metadata, and it's proliferating, and it's getting noisy. So today, the sum of all human knowledge can be accessed on the iPhone. But how do you get to the right knowledge at the right time when you're living in a world of noise? So as we start thinking about a new disruption is needed. You know, I'm trying to hire a bunch of people with very specific skills, and probably all of you as well, and we're all tug-of-warring over human bodies, like who has machine learning skills, data science skills, how come our colleges aren't giving us the resources we need, and they're churning out still people that have degrees that are facing backwards instead of degrees that are facing forward. We're all trying to transform technology, and at Amazon, we're inventing new technologies every day, and every time we disrupt technology, we disrupt ourselves. And so we have to have this lifelong learning in your companies, in our company, in the schools, and so we're desperate to transform learning for all of our education, all of our schools, all of the adult learning, so you name it, from pre-K to 12 to college. Learning doesn't end with a diploma, it just begins. That's where real learning has to keep going and continue and to accelerate. And how are we going to do that when the data is disconnected? So here at Amazon, I've got a lot of data on all of my employees, and wouldn't it be nice if I could pass back, really have a forecasting of what technology we're going to be creating, what skills we'll need for that technology. But then I'd want to very quickly pass it back to the universities, colleges, Coursera, Udemy, all of our partners that are helping us learn and build new workforce. But we can't get people to change their curriculum fast enough to keep up with the human resource changes. And here at Amazon, we also have, you know, the new robotics and humans interacting with robots and so much more going on. And I bet you guys are starting to think about quantum publishing, automated publishing. So how do you build publishing where you have bots doing all the work for you? Well, you need human resources that help you invent that new future. So here we all are struggling through this, and we have this lack of data, lack of metadata that's allowing us to be able to pass that information around and all of us be able to build a workforce of the future. So what do we mean by interoperability of data? You know, I can tell you I pitched this slide 15 years ago, long time ago, maybe before some of you were even in the workforce. But the importance of this is it's still an important slide for us today. We need the metadata on content so that it can pass and move forward. We need metadata around people and profiles. We need to be able to understand and have a computational framework around a learning profile so that we understand what people need, when they need it, and how they need it. And what does that require? It requires that we think differently about how we hand data off to each other and how we develop content and the kinds of ways that we're going to tag that content. Well, in our group, and I know a lot of people were very curious, so what is Amazon doing in education? What are we doing in learning? Well, I can tell you honestly, what we're doing in learning is listening to you guys and hearing back from everybody in this room and from our customers and your customers that it's very important for them to have automation and that tagging, to have automation and putting the metadata onto that content, have automation and understanding the learner so that everybody can focus on the things they do best. building content, building great learning for people, teaching, learning, professional development, and not having to deal with these complexities that Amazon's very good at. So when I think about the future, just like I was saying, I could go in and start Googling and trying to find out, well, what do I need to know as a financial analyst? I can jump into a couple Coursera courses. I can jump into Udemy courses, Udacity courses. I could go to Stanford. I probably have done all of that. But there's all of this noise still. So which one is really going to take me through my path? So I don't know. Maybe all of them. And maybe it's a little of everything. So learning is turning into a different world where we don't need to be pulled down into one box or one school or one learning experience. Now learning needs to be ubiquitous. It should be across many platforms and many products. And as we traverse across all those products, what if all that data could follow us and that people would have insights of maybe this product or this learning experience on that platform is going to be helpful for me. So we need these learning paths, and we need these learning paths to start being automated for us so that as I start looking at all the noise that's happening out there, we leverage artificial intelligence. So everybody goes, what is artificial intelligence? So right now, we're focused on machine learning and leveraging the power of machine learning. Machine learning is more than just a fad. And I remember, maybe 40 years ago, I was working on really rudimentary aspects of artificial intelligence while I was in the service. And everybody was like, this is, we're like a century away. And now that we're almost half a century from there, we may have cut that time down because we've used data to help us understand data. And artificial intelligence right now is cresting into reality for us to be able to use in our lifetime. And machine learning is bringing us forward very quickly. So machine learning, when you think about machine learning, and I was grappling with my product person this morning because everybody asked me, what does that mean? And so imagine you have all of this unstructured data and structured data, and you can pull it together. You can bring in what people text. You can bring in conversations. You can bring in, so let's say Alexa's in a classroom. You can bring in all of that text or that voice, turn it to text and surface insights and connect it to maybe an assessment and a course or multiple things that are happening, and maybe across different apps that people are on, and AR, VR, and immersive learning and project-based learning. So imagine all of that content and all of that data coming together and being able to see insights. And what I mean by that is being able to see where people learn best, what they need next, to see the gaps in their knowledge, see the gaps in their foundational learning, and see where they're persisting in their knowledge, and to be able to assemble and tailor the right content, the right learning experiences, in the right platform at the right time. Imagine how powerful that would be. And I'm not just talking about in classrooms. Imagine a future where all of us partnered together could be part of this operating system, be part of understanding what people need, and to be able to anticipate what comes next for people. So that if I'm programming, what if I start having struggles in a Java method and a nudge came to me and I was able to learn from that? Could you imagine that future? Or maybe it's a future where maybe I'm scuba diving and I don't understand what coral I'm looking at and I get nudged to understand that. That is what I'm talking about when we can start pulling all of our data together and start interoperating together and being able to be true partners around the data and metadata while also protecting the data of our users. None of us want our data to be out there being hijacked. And we want to own our own data, and we want to control who has access to that data. So it's kind of interesting to think that in the future, or in the very near future, or even in weeks, days, and months, if we all work together, we can start to figure out how we protect end user data while also passing the right metadata back and forth so that we can really turn learning on its head and drive learning forward. So what if we could help people reach their potential, their true human potential? And a lot of that comes from thinking about all of the different tools and technologies, and I brought up AR, VR because, you know, when we do some learning in some of the fulfillment centers, maybe sometimes people need to learn to drive wearing an AR, VR set, being in virtual reality. There's surgeons right now who are learning how to do surgery instead of in the operating room, they're actually using virtual reality sets. Now imagine in a surgery, as people are starting to have problems, they could get in the moment support and help and nudge from colleagues who can help them do that surgery because the data is being passed and people can get in that moment near real time information so that, you know, like me, I've had 115 surgeries to put my face back together and my heart and my legs and everything else, that what if my surgeon didn't know what to do? Well, I've had that happen. So he's woken me up and said, well, we'll have to finish this in an hour or so while I go consult with someone. I'd rather that they had some headset on. So the reality of the future and the reality of the now is we have all these tools in place. We just haven't figured out how to bring all of that together and how to work through this cloud so that now all of my apps, all of the companies that I want to work with, all of that data allows for the proper sequencing of information so that it can build on the foundations I have in place and anticipate the learning that I need next. So where do we go from here? Well, we want to move from the static learning to ubiquitous learning so that you can actually move through your life and not have to go log into a laptop. It makes me crazy when I get a nudge on my phone and it goes, you have to get into your laptop, VPN, get on this learning thing, and then it tells me, oh, I have to log out of that and then go put on some learning device and go do that. So I'm passing between things inappropriately. And what we want is to have ubiquitous learning so that it doesn't matter. Are you on Siri? Are you on your phone? Are you in your laptop? So, and then moving away from regimented curriculum. You know, the thing that we're learning with machine learning, and it's something I learned back with McGraw-Hill, was that we can build these really interesting personalized learning paths, and we don't need to be trapped in curriculum that was developed 10 years or 20 years ago, that we can assemble and tailor information and content and build learning paths that are ubiquitous and that are moving us down around my intent for learning and all of my learning goals. And then the best part is really thinking about all of the opportunities that we have moving away from the rigidity of a single platform and understanding how we move throughout life. And this gets to the hope of the Internet of Things, but I'm telling you, it is the hope and the desire and the goal of the operating system of learning. And all of us can be participants in this, and all of us have been participants in this. We have partners in this room that are helping us see this way forward, who are helping us drive and develop the right products at the right time. And we want to work with all of you to really understand what your vision is so that we can help to drive this vision forward. So we have some incredible programs and AWS Educate sitting in this room. And what's special about AWS Educate, and it was interesting when I first started, people kept thinking I was in AWS Educate, and they kept pinging me and asking me for free tokens, and I kept going, I don't know what that means. And then Ken Eisner and some of our partners came in and educated me on this incredible power from this program. Now, what's powerful about this is that they partner with schools and districts and universities and colleges and others in this room, and they really are helping to answer the question around how do we give kids and learners hands-on skills in technology. And so they've built out an incredible suite of resources so that all of your learners, even your employees, in fact, our employees can use a lot of these tools. And of course, we have the AWS EdTech. So startups, we want to have you come work with us. We love you. And we have this future in learning that we're super excited about. And I'm on a clock, so I'm going to stop myself and see if anybody has any questions. I'm sorry for the rush. Yes?
What are the cultural barriers you see, other than technical barriers, to make this a reality?
You know, I love that question. The cultural barriers are sometimes people can't see their way beyond the silos they've developed, and they're a little bit afraid of disrupting their current business. But there's an opportunity to expand that business and see new business models by disrupting business. You know, you see Apple disrupts itself all the time by bringing out new products, and their growth has just been astronomical. So sometimes you have to disrupt yourself to be able to grow. Any other questions? There has to be some. No questions? Okay.
Strategic question. What role does Amazon see itself playing in the future? It's the marketplace of everything on planet Earth. Will you become the marketplace of the platform for all future learning? Is that the goal? Is that the intent? Is that the vision
I think,
Amazon has?
yeah, I think that the vision is, how do we build these resources inside of AWS so that people don't have to spend a lot of their resources trying to build like some of these tools that we've built. Like we have machine learning tools, and we'll have some more machine learning tools, interoperability tools, a lot of technologies that would take, you know, like I have a very large team of data scientists, and each of these guys and gals are very expensive to hire and to build these technologies. And so the way we see it is we can build these tools and more cost effectively be able to share it all out for all. And I think that the vision of how we want to transform learning is by helping you be customer focused and customer centric. And so if you have access to the tools that would cost you years to develop and millions, if not tens of millions of dollars to develop, we're better for that. Our entire country, our entire world. If we can provide that backbone for you, that is our goal. Yes.
I read an article about Amazon University. So my question is, Amazon has planned to become an actual university or become a player or just support existing institutions?
You know, I think you're referring to like Amazon U, and we have tech. So we have these different learning programs. So we have a commitment to some of our fulfillment centers to help people get, you know, because the fulfillment centers, we may have employees that have been in prison or have no high school degree. And so we focus a lot of attention on learning so that we can lift our employees so that then they can leverage the fulfillment centers as an initial job, and then they can go out and get a career afterwards. So we have a lot of our learning is inside to really help advance people. And then we also realize that we have to have a very strong learning environment. We're a learning organization, and we spend, some organizations inside of Amazon allow 20% of people's time to be learners. Yes?
How do you decide whether the learning was efficacious, whether it was worth it, and whether it's people on the right course or not?
That's a very good question. So we eat our own dog food. So the tools that we're building, we also leverage those tools so that we can see the efficaciousness of learning programs, in-classroom programs, online learning programs, and all of the above, every kind of learning program you can imagine. Okay. Yeah, one more question.
I have a question. So just to understand practically what you're describing, so, let's say I have content and I have learners, and I would load my content and all my metadata and load my learners into AWS, and then the AI algorithms would run and send back into my platform recommendations for what those learners would do next?
Yep.
Is that kind of what you're describing?
In a simplified way, yes. Yeah, so I can talk to you at the cocktail area, but I can give you some specific ways that could work. Like apps could sit on top of us, content, we can do a lot of different things. Oh, yeah.
You spent much of your career, Synaptic Mash, Declara, creating products for people on the outside to use. Now you're creating products, from what I can tell here, for people inside Amazon to use. How does that, did that require change in your thinking or your approach?
In some ways at first I thought it would, but then it turned out the way it worked was Amazon is like a giant organization, like an enterprise in multiple enterprises, so it ended up being like I'm selling or building for multiple companies. So thank you so much. I'm getting flagged.